So good morning, everyone. My name is Tatiana, and this is my design partner, April. And today we'll present our sustainable design for the city of Johannesburg in 2050. So this is Johannesburg, the largest city in South Africa and also South Africa's economic and cultural core. Johannesburg is the capital of the wealthiest region in South Africa, and according to the Siemens African Green City Index, Johannesburg has an above-average sustainability performance. However, this is also Johannesburg, a city where almost 20% of the total population lives in informal settlements without access to adequate water, drinking water, sanitation, electricity, and solid waste collection. So this is Johannesburg, a mining community shaped by its upper side legacy that became a city of contrast, a city that will double from its current 4.9 million people to almost 10 million people by 2050.
So there are already many existing development plans for the future of Johannesburg. So the ones shown here are just some that we use as a reference and guide for our own plans. So first we have the Joburg 2040 Growth and Development Strategy, and this is a long-term development strategy and vision for Johannesburg by 2040. And one of its main outcomes is to provide a resilient, livable, and sustainable environment underpinned by infrastructure supportive of a low-carbon economy. Next, we have the Johannesburg Integrated Development Plan, which basically supports the GDS's long-term goals by providing more medium-term goals and outcomes within 5-year terms. And then finally, we have our Corridors of Freedom Plan, which is a spatial development plan focused on developing safer and more efficient transport corridors linked to mixed-use development nodes to spur more economic and urban growth within these corridors.
Well, building up on those plans and also based on Jane Jacobs and Colin Beaker urban theory design, we've designed our vision for Johannesburg in 2050. The city of Johannesburg, an inclusive, accessible, resilient, and safe Johannesburg for all its citizens, a city that is environmentally sustainable, socially just, and economically prosperous. A city that provides for all the needs of its citizens equally, without compromising the future livelihood of the city. A Johannesburg for all.
So ultimately, these are our goals for our plans. We want to be able to provide settlements full access to basic services. We want a more efficient, safe, and connected public transit system. We want our city to be higher density, mixed-use, polycentric city. We want a cleaner energy mix, a more efficient and sustainable water infrastructure, as well as ultimately a 65% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions.
So starting with our buildings, we worked with 2 different strategies for 4 types of buildings, retrofitting the existing formal and informal settlements and building new high-rise and courtyard housing. For our retrofitting strategies, they included installing PV solar panels, solar water heating panels, changing light bulbs to LED lighting, and installing heating and lighting motion sensors. As a result, we achieved a 66% in energy intensity for the formal settlements and a 38% reduction in energy intensity for informal settlements.
So to address the new population, we looked at 2 different strategies, the first being mid-rise courtyard housing. And we see that residents living in informal settlements generally have a very big sense of community. So with the courtyard housing, we're able to provide a gathering space for residents to interact with one another. And implementing similar strategies that Tatiana talked about, we were able to reduce energy consumption by 44%. And looking at our high-rise buildings, we plan to implement these for the new population in Johannesburg. And again, implementing the same strategies, we were able to reduce energy consumption by 34%.
So taking a look in transportation in 2050, considering that by then Johannesburg will be a polycentric city, we designed a safe and reliable public transit system with a broad BRT network.
So why did we choose a BRT network? Well, the main reason is due to its affordability. Compared to other systems such as metro or LRT systems, which can cost almost 4 to 10 times more expensive than the BRT network, Obviously, the BRT network is the most cost-effective solution while still providing high-capacity, reliable, and safe service.
So we based our PKT modal share of different transportation modes on Johannesburg existing transportation plan for 2030, but we increased the participation of public transportation and active transportation and decreased the participation of cars and taxis that were the main transportation modes in 2017. And we designed our streets, our arterial, through, and local streets to be transit-oriented, to be oriented to public transportation, and also to provide a safe environment for active transportation. As a result of our strategies for the transportation sector, we expect a 52% reduction in private vehicle use and a 57% reduction in taxi use from the business-as-usual scenario, and an increase in 180% in public transit use and a 150% increase in active transportation. And taking a look at the transportation emissions, with our design strategies, we expect a 41% reduction in transportation emissions from the business-as-usual scenario and a 15% reduction from the planned scenario by the city for 2030.
And some other low-carbon initiatives we plan on implementing in the city are just congestion pricing, refleeting of existing vehicle stock, HOV lanes, as well as increased parking prices within the city.
So for the land use in 2050, with our strategies, we expect Johannesburg to have a higher density than it currently has. It will go from 3,000 people per square kilometer to 14,000 people per square kilometer, being a more polycentric city with a dynamic metropolitan core. All the informal settlements will be retrofitted and regularized, and plural commercial nodes and mixed-use neighborhoods with evenly distributed green spaces will be developed along the transportation corridors.
So we looked at an existing area in Johannesburg, Turpentine, which is located in the Brown, and it's located directly below one of the central business districts in Johannesburg. And mainly this area is very sprawled and low density, and due to these two factors, it serves mainly as a gateway neighborhood for traffic to go through rather than being a destination in itself. So on the right, we propose implementing more BRT lines shown in the pink, as well as local metro bus lines shown in the green to provide more connectivity within the city and through the city. And this is the existing land use distribution of the area. The red is mainly low-density residential area, and the north brown area is mainly mining, industrial, and commercial spaces. So there's very low connectivity between the two and low land use mixing. So we propose for the future to densify along the BRT corridors that we propose in the pink, as with mixed-use land development in order to spur economic and urban growth within these areas. And as well, we plan to break through the brown demarcated mining land in order to provide connectivity within the area.
So for the energy sector in 2050, in 2017, Johannesburg relied heavily on coal and diesel, with more than 90% of its electricity coming from high-carbon, non-renewable sources. So for 2050, this will change significantly, with 16% of electricity coming from solar sources, 25% from nuclear, 35% coming from integrated gasification combined cycle with carbon capture and storage coal, and only 24% coming from its current grid based on coal and diesel sources. So electricity will be provided to Johannesburg by two different systems. The centralized system responsible for providing electricity to the residential, industrial, commercial, and non-residential sectors, and the distributed system composed by distributed solar PV panels that we already talked about during our building section, and they will be responsible for providing almost 20% of the electricity demand from the residential sector. So by 2050, with our strategies, we expect that the electricity consumption will reduce by 67% from the business-as-usual scenario. with residential and industrial sectors in 2050 as the largest consumers of electricity. And also with our strategies, we expect a 68% reduction in emission intensity, considering the emission intensity from the business as usual scenario.
Looking at water in the city, we looked at two different sectors, at the building level and at the city level. And mainly in the building level, we plan on implementing water-efficient fixtures, rainwater harvesting systems, and gray water reuse systems. And with these strategies in place, we are able to reduce water consumption and wastewater production by 69% and 36% in formal settlements, 54% and 36% in the informal settlements, 51% and 28% in our courtyard housing case, as well as 50% and 16% in our high-rise buildings. Looking towards the city level, by 2050 we want to provide 100% of our population access to clean and reliable water supplies, and we also plan on renewing and replacing existing pipes for water and sewer mains, as well as implementing pressure management initiatives in the existing system in order to decrease the amount of water lost in the system. We also plan on expanding our wastewater treatment works in order to meet the demands of the future wastewater treatment demand, as well as implementing public education awareness programs in order to increase efficiency of all consumers. And with these in place, we're able to decrease our water demand by 25% from our business as usual case. We're able to reduce water losses in our system by 75%. And finally, we're able to reduce the amount of wastewater production by 25%. And again, this just compares our two different scenarios, showing that we've achieved a 25% reduction in water demand.
So for our waste in 2050, we plan to send the organic waste produced in the city to biodigester facilities that will produce fertilizer for the food production within the city, and renewable natural gas to be sent to the residential sector, and also the inorganic waste will be sent either to managed landfills or recycling industries. So by 2050, we expect 100% solid waste collection, 100% organic waste biodigestion, 70% recycling of organic solid waste, and 30% inorganic solid waste sent to managed landfills.
So finally, looking at our greenhouse gas emission comparisons, we have our three different scenarios. Our business as usual 2050 scenario, which is a 0% reduction in total greenhouse gas emissions. We have our target for 2050, which is a 65% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. And finally, our achieved JSA 2050 reduction of 39% in our greenhouse gas emissions. So this compares the three different scenarios, and we can see that with our implementations, the greatest significant reduction in emissions is in our residential, transportation, and waste sector. However, comparing to the actual target, we see that there's still a long way to go in terms of our transportation, industrial, and commercial sector, so we hope to address these in future plans. And again, this is just comparing the three different scenarios. We see that we are able to achieve an emission reduction of 35 megatons of CO2, but we still have an unachieved emission reduction of 25 megatons of CO2.
So taking a look at Johannesburg urban metabolism in 2017 and the urban metabolism in 2050, we can see that the energy and material flows, they are significantly more close in 2050 with our strategies, especially regarding strategies like rainwater harvesting, gray water reuse, solar heating and solar electricity, and recycling and biodigesting Johannesburg's solid waste.
And then finally, looking towards our sustainable urban development goals, for development goal 11.1, we plan on regulating and retrofitting all of our existing informal settlements, as well as providing affordable housing for all our population with our courtyard housing. And by 2050, we hope to have 100% coverage of all basic services. 11.2, we plan to have a safe and reliable public transit system with a BRT network emphasis, showing an increase in 180% and 150% in public and active transit. And 11.6 will have a 100% wastewater collection and treatment and solid waste collection as well as a 70 and 100% recycling and composting rate. And we were able to reduce electricity demand, residential water use, and annual GHG emissions shown there. And then finally, we have our increase in green space of 5.64% within the city.
So finally, with our design, Johannesburg will be a more inclusive, accessible, resilient, and safe city. And with our design, Johannesburg will be indeed a city for all.